You write about a memorial that was written by the General Committee of the Army of the United States to petition Congress.
Yes.
And you write that we have struggled year after year, or quoting the memorial, we have struggled year after year for redress, hoping that each year would be the last. Every time we have been disappointed. By now, the accumulation of the years of embarrassment weighed so heavily that they were unable to go further. They decried the fact that citizens murmur at the greatness of their taxes and are astonished that no part reaches the army. Our distresses are now brought to a point. We have borne all that we can bear, and the uneasiness of the soldiers for want of pay is great and dangerous. Any further experiments on their patience may have had fatal effects. So what were the grievances that the soldiers outlined for Congress?
You know, it's very interesting. Americans' attitude towards government hasn't changed very much. And on the home front during the Revolution, where the war was not present, in places like New England after 1776, people wondered, they were paying heavy taxes, or so they thought they were paying heavy taxes. Again, people always think they're paying heavy taxes. And they wondered, where is all this money going? Okay? And then they would hear grievances from the Army and wonder, well, if we're sending this tax money, why isn't it getting to the Army? And there were always questions about what the Congress was doing. It's always easy to blame a distant government for wasting your money. And so if we're sending all this money to the Congress, what is the Congress doing with it? Why isn't the Army being fed? Why are we hearing that they're not being paid? We thought we were sending taxes. So there are a number of different stories in between. The truth is not always quite clear here. But people at home did think that money was being wasted by the government. And so their argument was, you don't need more money, you just need to spend it more wisely. Have we heard that?
Sounds very common.
Yes, have we heard that before? And in the meantime, however, it is the Army that suffers. It was also true towards the end of the war that there was some antipathy towards the Army, which seems strange, I know, but people back home wondered about these soldiers. What are they doing? Are they lazy? Are they just hanging around the camp? What is happening? And so there was an increasing reluctance as the war sort of wound down to send more money. It was simply I think, a somewhat natural attitude towards a distant government that you suspected of wasting your money. And so increasingly the states were reluctant to send money.
So how did Congress respond to the petition?
Well, Congress would respond by replying to the states, please send us more money. But keep in mind that the Congress had no power to enforce that. The government is in the latter part of the war, under the Articles of Confederation. And under the Articles of Confederation, the Continental Congress, or the Confederation Congress, as it would now be called, had no compulsory way to get money. They would simply ask the states to send money. The states did send money. They didn't stiff the Congress completely, but they would rarely send as much as the Congress thought they required, and when they sent it, it was usually late. The Congress, in the meantime, which had, for a great part of the war, had depended upon the French for aid. Much of the gold cash that supported the revolution came from the French. Well, the French began to have the same attitude as well. You can imagine the French minister in Philadelphia watching the machinations of the Congress and the states, and watching the states being reluctant to send money to the Congress. The French minister would then ask the Congress, well, wait a minute, if the states won't send money to support the revolution, why should the French government send money? And there was this increasing sort of friction between, you have the Congress at the center here, trying to get funds from the French, who are saying, you know, we've already sent you enough money. Do we need to send you more? And the states almost echoing what the French are saying, and the Congress trying to make a case to get money from both sides, and not, frankly, having a lot of success.
And in the meantime, the Army is just suffering.
In the meantime, the Army is the victim. In the meantime, the Army is the victim. And Washington, of course, being polite that he was, and being very respectful of civilian government, doesn't really feel that he can pound the Congress, but nonetheless he keeps saying to the Congress, you have to support me. We have to pay the Army. And then you have all of these machinations going on between the French and the states, and the Army still in encampment, in distress.
At the time, there were fundamental differences in Congress about the nature of the Union, and what were these differences, and how did these affect the dynamics for the treatment of the soldiers?
Right. There had been, almost from the very beginning of the revolutionary effort and the convening of the Continental Congress, at least two views, and many in between. I do not use the term parties, because party implies some kind of organization, and that didn't exist. But there were the view from some of the older revolutionaries, people like Samuel Adams, people like Patrick Henry, who saw the revolution as a revolution of states, of local government, against a highly centralized government in London. They were very much states' rights people, that power rested and should rest in its most local nature. Then there were those who saw a greater America, a more powerful union, and union is the key word here, a central government with more power than was thus given to the Congress. And here Washington certainly falls into that. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, these were people who had a vision of a greater and stronger union. Indeed, in some instances, Washington himself used the term our rising empire. So they saw more power being centralized. And so there is a collision here between these two world views. And for the most part, during the period of the revolution itself, the adherents of local government, states' rights, win. And that's one of the reasons, of course, why the Congress cannot get money, cannot have compulsory means to get money. The Articles of Confederation are an expression of local rights. 13 states, each state, one vote. No executive, simply a president elected. No compulsory means to gather taxes. So the Articles of Confederation in great measure reflected that sense of local government, power to the people, I guess is what we would say today. It is a reaction to that will lead to the summoning of a convention in 1787. And that convention, the Constitutional Convention, emerges with a form of government which is very, very much the opposite of the Articles of Confederation. The Constitution of 1787 produces a very strong central government, but that will take years to evolve and develop and comes out of the experience of the revolution. But in the revolutionary period itself, it is very much local government, state government, and a Congress dependent upon the largesse of the states.
So the national philosophy would have benefited the Continental Army more than the local?
Yes, I think that is probably true, that had there been a stronger central government with greater financial resources, yes, that would have benefited the Army. Yes, that's probably quite true.
Were the soldiers simply suffering from the growing pains of establishing a new free government, or did the members of Congress purposefully choose to deny them their needs?
Oh, I don't think the members of the Congress purposely chose to deprive the Army of its necessary supplies. No, not at all. They wanted to do the best they could. They were simply trapped in a system that would not permit them to do that. No, I think their intentions were quite honorable. I would never have doubted that. And I don't think Washington ever doubted that either. In his correspondence with the Congress, and even in his correspondence with people outside of the Congress, he never really doubted the intention and honor and integrity of the Congress. What he saw as a failure were their actions, but their actions came from other reasons, not out of any evil intent.